Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome back to those of you that have been following this series. This has really been good for me as a reader to go back and visit these cards in a methodical way, pulling out lots and lots of decks. And I want to thank you all for your contributions to this conversation. It's really been amazing. This is the fifth court card, honor card video in this series. And if you are just sort of jumping in now, there were also 2 videos per suit. So there were 2 on Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles, so 8 of those, and then there'll be 8 videos on the honors. And then the next part of this program will be to go through the decks that I have. I want to put them in order, do a bit of a show and tell reflection with that before we get into the major arcana. So this is I'm really enjoying this. Welcome. I'm Sadhana for those of you that are new here, and I have been a tarot reader for many years. I have periodically studied the Tarot de Marseille, but not in such a thoughtful way. So here I am back again with these cards, and today is all about the knights, the Cavaliers, the Chevalier, the Caballero, and if you have other names on your cards, we can also talk about the language on the cards as well too. And I was reviewing my comments, and I want to thank Dee for sharing a link about name changes. And it was it was from Tarot Forum, and there was a conversation about the changes of spelling. And while I don't have any of the answers to this, it really made sense what was offered there. And so I may address some of this today, just because I know a lot of people are wondering about this. Hello, Arya. Welcome. So again, today is about knights, and we're going to look at these cards in all 4 suits, and yeah, just have a conversation about what is going on here. There's a lot of different ways to read the court cards, and there is conflicting information across, I'll say, disciplines, if you want to call it that, of elemental associations, the affinities. I meant the affinities, not the elemental associations. Usually wands is fire, swords is air, and cups is water, and coins are earth. But the connections to the affinities, there are lots of different ways to interpret that. And I may very well address that. But where I want to start today is this idea of knights as being on the go and on the road. Knights as movement, symbolizing change, symbolizing the opposite of stagnant energy. When these cards appear in a reading, they really, I think, invite that sort of energy, and often appear with Chariot and other cards of movement, sometimes 8 of Wands or other cards, that maybe the 2 of Pentacles, other cards symbolizing change. They really inspire me. And when I was doing my Thoth deep dive last year, really having a good look at the inspiration that this court provides. Thinking about, what does it mean to be on a quest? What does it mean to be on a journey? What does it mean to be on a journey of fire, or a journey of air or water or earth? And I find it's like these cards make me feel alive and young and inspired in every way. I think sometimes we get stuck where we are, and I really appreciate this court, and when it appears, it gives you permission to do something very differently than you have been doing. Hi Jen, welcome. So the idea of nights as mutable and being connected with the mutable astrological signs fits very much in with this. And in both in Caitlin Matthews' book, which is what's it called, The Untold Tarot, as well as Jodorowsky, which is here, a few other books on my table. They really feel like that. Like they feel like change. They embrace change so well, and maybe that was part of their role and part of their job, and they didn't have any choice. But I think symbolically, that's what they're most connected to. What is Dee saying here? Yesterday, I was at a rock gig, and tonight I'm out and about with the Knights, and they would certainly be down in the mosh pit. Oh, that is so wonderful. I'm glad you're out enjoying life. Yeah, I think there is there's an envious carefreeness to these, and I know that a lot of the quests and the journeys and the missions the Knights were on were anything but carefree, but I think we need to bring this energy into what it is that we need in a reading and how we're going to interpret them. So certainly however movement connects to you in your reading, this is certainly a big part of what the Knights represent. And I want to look at them individually and how their element is represented in this card. And I've been staring for the last half hour at a bunch of Knight of Wands and just thinking about this knight that looks back, changing direction. And I opened the PDF for the Yonasa Yos Tarot, and her knights are not on horseback, but I can show you if you're interested. There's a couple of things that she, in translation, I suppose, interprets Jodorowsky's work. And talking about the Knights, he says that the Knight of Wands riding a white horse, the symbol of sublimated desire. The Knight of Wands so dominates his mount, he can force it to change directions. His wand has become natural again. We'll get into that in a little bit. But this idea of easily shifting directions and wanting to, and being able to do that. Now, whether this is from erratic impulse or safety, or, I mean, there could be a number of reasons why you need to stop quickly, turn, and shift directions. It's a great skill to have. Maybe not the kind of energy you want in a lover. Maybe you do. I don't know. But this idea with the Knight of Wands of being able to use his force and his power and his gift in a way that is relevant and needed in the circumstances. So I think there's quite a few ways we can apply this ability to adapt under pressure. And I don't think I'd ever really thought about this before, because when you read Waite Smith and Waite Smith inspired decks, generally speaking, the Knight of Wands, the rider and the horse are going in the same direction. And you don't get this information in the Yonasa Yaos. She writes, a person who abruptly changes the course of his life thanks to the impulse of an enlightened spirit. Among other things. I really like this. Let's have a look at what Jen is saying here. Looking at these cards, they strangely remind me of the Fool riding forth with a minimum of baggage. They do. They have a lighter load. I did a project years back. I've shared it a few times with different classes. And I went through photographs to find a picture of myself as each of the 16 court cards. And the nights were really interesting because one of them took me from back walking on a road in India wearing my ashram garb, and different night pictures were on journeys. They were me traveling different kinds of movement and missions and times in my life. And I don't know, maybe I miss it. Maybe I miss that a lot. That impulsiveness. And I wonder if there is a I guess it's going to depend on the person, but a degree of unconsciousness about this need to understand the change, the need to, it's a great exercise, Jen, you should try it. You don't know why, and maybe your family thinks you're crazy, but it's time to move, it's time to change. So the Knight of Wands, the Cavalier de Bâton, is about to shift energy. And the Knight, as opposed to the Knight of Swords, that is much more focused and looks more familiar perhaps to a Waite Smith Knight of Swords that is going forward in the same direction as the horse. And the Knight of Cups is the same as is the Knight of Pentacles. While they're going in different directions, they are in sync with the animal that they are riding. And I love that metaphor to work with the horse. What does the horse represent? What does the rider represent? What do the reins represent? Sometimes I sit with that and I take that apart with a querent, especially if it feels like there's we need to look at the aspects of change. Honestly, I love these cards so much. Philarcos Tarot. Many of you did the deep dive with me in that deck. And the knights in the Philarcos Tarot are called trails. One of the things that Carmen Sorrenti does in that deck is she places the knights. I don't know if it's first or last in the court card. But the trails lead you in and lead you beyond. I just love that name change. They are one of the black and white cards in the deck. The aces and the knights are black and white. There's this sense of unknown and something not quite revealed yet. And yeah, I like this aspect, and it has more of a messenger aspect. And if you think about this historically and going back to playing cards and the origin of the tarot, and there were three, right? There were three courts, and this particular one was added later on. I guess one could argue, well, let's just say this is the one that was added on. There was a messenger quality that was attached to the page, and then the messenger quality sort of morphed into this card. And I think we can find that energy in both pages and in Knights. But that is also something here that feels really important, in that they may be seeking the message. They may be more open to receiving the message as well, too. And I think you hit on something when you said about the Fool and the lightness of the baggage. When we are in open spaces, when we are alone out in the world, if you've ever traveled alone, you know how much easier it is to receive information than when you are traveling with a bunch of other people. These are traveling cards. Yeah. The Knight of Swords looks to me very much like a jousting card. If you've ever seen jousting, that definitely looks like what's going on there. And we talked about the Knight of Cups last time, and the way that the Knight of Cups is holding their card, their cup, so carefully, and so would not be going at any great pace, because it would be, quite challenging to hold your cup in this way, just cradled in your hand. And notice as well, too, that the Knight of Coins has a bat of some kind in their hand, and is not actually holding the coin. Roger Horn describes, this is from D, the Cavalier of Beton as drawn to conflict like a moth to a flame. That feels like adventure movies, and there are that character feels very contemporary and very much a part of the kind of movies my partner likes to watch. Some people are just drawn to challenge and risk, and fire energizes them, right? Fire brings them alive. It ignites something in them. And this element of fire we talked about at length in those two videos can represent a lot of things. And what a powerful quality this is. Many of the writers talk about how this particular wand, now we're looking back at something quite natural. It no longer, it's not just a stick, it's very much alive. And how this knight is the fire. This knight is one with the fire again. Something kind of special here. Yeah, I like that expression, Jennifer. Putting it all on the line. When I look at perhaps the intention of the Knight of Wands was to go in this direction. The Knight of Swords, the Knight of Cups are going in that direction. And why would the knights go there? They would go to resolve conflict from the past, to deal with something, for the king, for the people. You know, sometimes we have to go back in order to understand the present. And I think that's one of the jobs of this energy. And I think about my journey cards and some of the journeys I have taken, and how we wander to understand, and a lot of that is to build connections, and to understand not necessarily the immediate past, but perhaps past lives or ancestral connections. Think about the number of people that travel to do that, you know, to travel and go and find old cemeteries or museums or documents in his libraries. Our real knights were the equivalent of tanks and very dangerous. Jousting was a great way to stay sharp and in practice, as well as display how deadly they could be if ordered to actually attack. And of course, we see that in a lot of the movies that attempt to portray historical times. And so in readings and working with the tarot, I think we need to understand that drive, and sometimes we don't have time to think. We need to, what did you say, Jennifer? You know, we need to put it all on the line, and be ready to be ready to shift if necessary. Horn's book, Cartomancy and Folk Witchcraft, Playing Cards in Marseille, Tarot de Marseille. Well, that is a long title, a very different Scottish folk tradition. Looks like you're carrying on with that comment. I'll wait till you're done. What else do I want to say? I think we need to also look at why the Knight of Pentacles, the Knight of Coins, Cavaliers de Denier, is the one that is different, is the one that is going forward. And I wonder if that is the nature of the journey. But that's something that we can look at in other cards. So let's look at a few of each suit, and then we can carry on with this. So the cards that are on the table are the Camwan. No, they're not. They are the Bendov cards. And this is the Jodorowsky. And I did want to compare. I know Bendov was a student of Jodorowsky. If there were any, I do need to do a side-by-side of these two decks. I may have done it years ago, but I want to come back. This is the Tarocco Soprafino. I have a lot of cards on the table, so I will likely back up in a minute or just layer them. Same sort of thing with the horse, the shift of direction. This would also demand a great agility of the horse. I did a reading today for myself using the pagan other worlds, and I look at this particular horse, this Knight of Wands, and don't you feel like with that rearing of the horse that indeed this is a shift of direction? I have a new deck which arrived this week. I was on my wish list and finally decided to get it. I don't know if it will ever go out of print, but this is the Tarocchi Vine dalla Torre in Bologna. published by the International Tarot Museum. And I will do a full walkthrough of it. It's absolutely lovely. It's that washi card stock, uncoated. And this particular card, the night is shifting in a different direction. And then last week, I had the Gassman Tarot out, and the Gassman Tarot is similar to the first two decks that I looked at. That's actually, sorry, I'm reading Dee's comment here. I will have a look for the book. Thank you for that, Dee. I have ordered one more, and I will look into that one. Thank you. All right, and then let's just look at, this is Noble. So Noble is the same. So I think there is something to this. And I wonder what happened. I wonder why in Golden Dawn decks, the Knight of Wands became aligned horse and rider and didn't have that feeling. The Isis Tarot version, I don't have that. I will look at it online. Thank you for that recommendation. So there's something here about this. Now, there's also another thing that feels different among some of these decks, and the dressing of the horse. So in the older, well, that's not, I can't really say older. In some of the decks, the horses are draped in a lot of fabric, as if on show. And I think if you were traveling across hundreds of kilometers across the land, that your horse would not be draped in this way. If it were on show, or if you were competing, it would be decorated in this manner. And have you thought about that? Because I'm wondering if that is something, because which suit? Often I think of denier as far as lavish fabrics and dressings and things like that, but that might be something that we want to look at. Okay, now there's another energy to the knights, and that is that they protect the element. They are the protectors of the element. So this is the fire keeper, the protector of this energy. And what if you had to journey in order to protect your life force? What if you had to shift directions to protect your dharma, to protect your life path? Something here just really feels good to me. Knowing what the element represents, or how it may respond to the question that you are asking, I think is really important. Okay. All right, so let's look at the Knight of Swords. The jousting card, if you will. Part of the discussion, this is the Noble. I think this is the bend off. No, it's the Jodorowsky deck. This is the Bendoff deck. Part of the discussion about the names was what happens when in caps the accents don't fit or they can't be used. And I ran into this problem in doing my thumbnail for next week's episode, because the particular font that I'm using, you can't put the accents on the caps. So one of the ways to get around that in the word swords was to, or in baton, but baton, because that had a circumflex, I believe, over the A, was to put an S in there. So that was one conversation. And then another conversation had to do with the use of plural or not. And so you'll see in all of these cards that there's no accents on the word sword, and it's not plural. So this is Knight of Sword. Sword Knight. Yeah. And another thought was that the nuances of language, of course, have changed over time. Dee has a comment on the dress of the horses. I think I might pay more attention to this. Because what does the horse represent? If you and depending whether you're using Jungian psychology or some other lens to look through it, we have the horse and we have the rider. And I think this also ties into, I don't know, like the horse is such a strong animal. It's a willful animal, and yet it can be trained and it can be controlled. And maybe because this is such an important conversation is one of the reasons why I appreciate the night cards so much. Oh, it's prettier than Jodorowsky. Okay. And this is the Gassman Tarot here. All right, so let's talk about the Knight of Swords. Focused. Going forward, it appears that the dress is beautiful. Look at this. Look at this. It's really quite extensive. Little shorter in the noble. Oh, yes, there is that 2D, isn't there? Yes, I wasn't thinking about a particular time. I wasn't thinking about the ability to have a horse. I was just thinking about the relationship between the horse and the rider. But yes, that is an important consideration. So Dee reminds us that the horse represented being able to afford one and its upkeep, because of course all people couldn't, right? That's a great observation, Jen. So if the horse were about to move forward quickly, would the sword be scabbard? I wonder. It doesn't look like a sword to me. It looks like a jousting. It looks like a sword in the noble. It does not look like a sword in the other three cards that we're looking at. And yet it looks like we're in open ground and open field. So another thing here, so we have the air night. And I think the focus here makes so much sense. The fact that this knight is really paying attention to the direction that he is going. He's in alignment with the horse. There's that sense of clarity, direction. We know exactly where we're going. And I understand that focus here. When I think about the Knight of Swords, the Cavalier of Swords, it has a different sort of energy than the Queen of Swords. Rarely, it's funny, and maybe you can let me know how you deal with this interpretation, but rarely do I talk about voice with the Knight of Swords. Whereas with Page, or even King or Queen, for sure I do. But I don't tend to talk about that here. It's more about mind and alignment of thought. There seems to be great consistency. This is the deck again I had out today. This is the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot. The element of air. I mean, I've always connected the knights to the element of air because of their adaptability, the way that they change, the way that they are in open space. And yes, they are all powerful and fast moving and full of testosterone and all of that. But this change thing, what I was talking about at the beginning, feels deeply connected here. So this is a very focused mind, and there is a determination of going forward with an idea or a point. There's a point to be made here. And maybe this fits in. I want to look at what is being delivered and where we're going to. So there's something about the sword cards, the knight cards, that and even sometimes I'm looking a couple of cards over, like what is this trajectory? What's happening with these knights? And I find, again, this is the Yonasa Yos, she hasn't put the knights on horses. And so it has quite a different flavor, and I think focuses more on the protection of the element. So if this knight is protecting an idea, protecting a thought, protecting intellectual property, protecting a document, is this journey to retrieve a document? Is this journey to deliver a message about a document? Jen says, strangely, all of these swords are left-handed. Traditionally, swords are carried on the left in a scabbard and held in the right. I wonder if that difference signifies anything. Did we talk about this before? Because this is a great observation. And I think this has to do with the higher frequency of sword. A right-handed sword is for war. It's for jousting. A right-handed sword is for an action of some sort, where a left-handed sword feels more connected to a principle or something even more spiritual. So you can think about that. I'll show you this is my new deck. Also going in the same direction. And here's the soprafino. We won't look at that one. My goodness. Yeah. There are no words on the Tarocchi Findala Torre. I'll show you the box. I haven't even really started to work with it yet. This is the one that I just got this week. So, what happens with the cups? Let's move those ones over here. So the cups are going in the same direction. The cup is held in that awkward position. Which I would love to read something about. Gassman has a lid on it. Oh, did I have the wrong card out? I think I might have had the wrong card in the last group of cards. Yes, I had the Knight of, this was the Knight of coins. This is the Knight of Cups. And this Knight of Swords looks a bit like it is about to change direction. A change of thought. What is going on over there? So definitely I'm going to be looking to see what is going on over there. D asks, is it artistic fancy? Maybe. Okay, so let's talk about the Knight of Cups. What is this Knight of Cups? Honestly, I know I'm repeating what I've said before, and that has to do with sitting with that Knight of Cups in the slow tarot, which is riding a hippocampus, and that play on words with hippocampus and hippocampus. Hippocampus, mythological creature, hippocampus, brain. And in that particular card, the knight is looking back at the castle, and I believe the horse is going forward. And there's this sense of longing in that card. Tremendous, tremendous emotion. So what is here? Now, this, of course, is traditionally what the Grail quest, and adapting that for present times and what that may represent. I often ask the querent, what is your holy grail? And depending on what other cards arise in the reading and the nature of the question, of course, but I think it's an invitation to have that sort of a question. And then I'll pull out Stephen Cope's book and start talking about the great work of your life. And, you know, it's I like challenging querents to remind them it's okay to change. It's okay to go in a different direction. It's not bad. You know, you're not Sometimes we invest a lot of time, a lot of money in something, and we feel like we have to stay because it's what people do. And then you get a reading with all of these cards of movement. And I think we need to look at the nature of the movement. Because also for me, this card is a deeply internal journey of understanding the underlying emotion of what's going on at this time. And honestly, there is something about the nature of the way the element is held, whether it's held in the right or the left hand, that for me says a lot. Now, what does it mean that the water is held in the right hand? What does it mean that the emotions, the cup, is held in the hand of action, the hand of aggression, the hand of doing? Kind of a rhetorical question, but that to me it makes it so easy to kind of poke at the querent. Look at this. The fabrics in this deck are just extraordinary. I love it. Okay. Coins. Coins. Oh, I didn't show you this one. This one's beautiful. And this idea about going to the past, if you're going to read it that way, again, I think we need to know where we've come from in order to go forward. We might not exactly, and it's funny because I do lots of not so much past life readings. There's such subtle nuances between a past life reading and I don't really want to get into this here, but there's many layers to this idea of going to the past in order to understand where we are now. And we don't need to understand it intellectually, but we can certainly understand it energetically. Okay, coins. And so this is the one that is going in the opposite direction. So why is the Cavalier de Denier going forward? And what does that say? This particular knight is holding a baton in the right hand, and the coin is floating in the air, which is quite different from the other knights. I'll just read you a few words. Jodorowsky describes the pentacle as a light, as a star in the sky, focusing on perhaps the star in the pentacle. And of course, in the coin cards, we didn't necessarily have a pentacle. D, you're so funny. I love this. Following the money with a big stick. Seriously, yeah, following the money, following. What does this feel like? This feels more like it's quite practical, actually. I want to show you the garden Eros, the Garden of Love tarot. It's really funny. We'll do that at the end just for a laugh. And this deck is it's got a change, a shift of direction indicated as well too. So maybe there's something to that. That's a really good point, Jennifer. Keeping your eye on the prize. There's a real practical nature to this one that isn't there with the others. And the fact that I know that some of them shifted direction to go in this direction, but this is the one that is intentionally facing to the right. And is that the case? So the Noble is the same. This is the Fleur Noire version of the Noble, little tiny cards. With his big stick also. Yeah. I don't know. What do you make of forward looking pursuit of goals? So not dwelling on the past, not needing to understand in a it's a call to action. It's not a call to understanding. And that makes this one quite different. Maybe you do that work in the other suits, and then in this suit, it's just about being here and being now and being present. Yes, that's true. Aria reminds us that some kings hold a stick and a sword. And what is the knight holding in the Fine della Torre? We can't really see the other hand. Okay, well, lots of food for thought. We'll look at the energy of the swords next week. That is the plan, but I wanted to show you this really funny deck. This is the Usi deck. It's called Eros Garden of Love Tarot. So get ready for a really good laugh here. So the King of Coins, sorry, not King, the Knight of Coins, you can see is, so the direction stays traditional, and this is about excess. Obviously the Knight is farting. The Knight of Cups is drunk, falling off his horse. The Knight of Swords doesn't look too sober either and is holding a peach in his hand. The horse has a whole other idea about where it's going. Of course, you can interpret what peach represents. Yeah, and then the Knight of Wands is holding a phallus. This is really hilarious, this deck. The horses all seem out of control here, except for the Knight of Coins, which has all four, or no, it has 3 hooves on the ground. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add, or any contemplations that seem incomplete for the knights? I know we'll come back because we still have 2 more suits to go through. But what I really took from this last couple of days of going back and reading was this idea of being able to, and this is, I suppose this is, all of the knights may need this quality, and that is to be able to adjust, to make adjustments where necessary, and to have the ability to turn one's horse. And so besides the realistic interpretation of being able to afford a horse, if you just think about yourself and within you, is it you, like what drives you? And I want to ask queerance this, and maybe it's the prize, the card that is ahead. Maybe what's driving me is racing away from what is behind. There's so much potential in this particular court, and it's absolutely, it's great. It's I sigh because when people comment about how hard it is to read the courts, I feel like there's so much in the court cards. So let's try to expand the web of connections that they bring to the tarot. And I think in the Tarot de Marseille, one of the bonuses is that most of them are side facing. So at least we can build direction in more easily. Yeah, you have a cup. Yeah, okay, there's some good points here. So let's do Arya first. Not so quick to use deadly force, but still being coercive to get paid. Yes, let's not forget this was a paid job. Hmm. The active protection of their element. And I said something about that near the beginning. How do we, why might we need to protect a particular element? And why might movement away from the present situation be necessary to protect that particular element? I think those are key questions in reading these cards. Okay, I'm going to leave you for today, friends. Thank you so much for this discussion. I'll see you next time, and we'll look at all of the swords and see if we can get inside the mind and the head. And what I want to look at is, do some appear to speak more to voice rather than thought or word? Me, the yogi, I'm always looking for voice. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your day. Namaste.